Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
I'm Maria.
I'm Lenny, and we're
Ready for another deep dive?
we're going deep today
Definitely.
into a piece called "This is How the Cabal Completely Controls the American People." And now that title,
Ooh.
it's a little spicy.
Spicy, yeah.
Yeah, it grabs your attention.
It raises some eyebrows, but I think the content here is worth exploring.
It is.
So,
It's gonna make you think.
yeah, the author starts off by saying that consumerism is like a major driver of narcissism in America.
Okay.
And they even go back to the Federal Reserve Act of 1913
Oh.
and suggest that this act sort of set the stage for us valuing people based on what they buy.
That's interesting because it makes you think about the connection between like economic systems and behavior.
Totally.
Right.
So, like, if we're always told that what we're worth is tied to what we own,
Yeah.
does that then, like, lead to a more self-centered outlook?
Possibly.
Yeah, and the author that goes on to say that after World War II, this consumerist mindset really, like, exploded.
Oh, absolutely. Think about all the advertising and the mass production and
Suburbia.
yeah, suburbia was all about getting more stuff right.
Yeah.
New cars, bigger houses, all the latest gadgets.
Yeah, you can really picture it.
Totally.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. And it makes you think, like, how did that shift from, like, wartime to this consumer focus impact us, you know?
Yeah, did it?
Individual behavior, societal values?
Did we lose sight of other things that were important?
And the author seems to think so.
Okay.
Then they go on to the 60s and 70s and point to events like the legalization of abortion and the rise of the women's liberation movement.
Okay.
Now, this is where it gets interesting.
Right.
Because they're suggesting that these movements, while they were, positive in a lot of ways, also contributed to a rise in narcissism,
Interesting.
specifically among women.
Okay.
And they even go so far as to say that these movements led to the destruction of the family.
That's a big statement.
It is a bold claim,
Yeah.
and we need to look at it carefully, right?
We do.
So did this push for female empowerment have unintended consequences?
Mm-hmm.
Did it lead to narcissism, like the author suggests?
Okay.
And then they take it even further,
Okay.
and they give us a whole list of these prominent women that they're calling narcissists.
Oh, wow.
Politicians, actresses, business leaders. It's quite a list.
This is where it gets tricky.
It does, because
Well, we're talking about real people now.
yeah, and labeling someone you know as a narcissist without proper expertise can be
It can be harmful.
yeah. Yeah, and it's important to remember that narcissism is a spectrum.
Right.
It's not just like black and white.
Right.
It's not a simple yes or no.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this list is interesting.
It is, and it does raise questions.
What?
Well, like, how do we perceive powerful women?
Mm.
Are they held to different standards than men? Are certain behaviors seen as more narcissistic when it's a woman doing them?
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think these are questions that are really important to think about because they tie into these bigger conversations about,
Gender dynamics.
gender dynamics, exactly.
And societal expectations.
So we'll keep exploring that as we go.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, another big part of their argument is this whole breakdown of the nuclear family.
Okay.
They're saying that things like single-parent households and same-sex parents and the influence of technology have all led to, less family values and more narcissism.
Family structures have changed a lot over time, though.
They have,
And there isn't one right way to raise kids.
for sure.
And technology has definitely changed how families connect.
It has. But is it fair to say that these shifts are all negative
Right.
and that they automatically lead to narcissism?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It seems like.
Because there are challenges and complexities in all families.
Exactly.
That's not as simple as they're making it sound.
And technology can be good and bad.
It's true. It can connect people and help them learn.
Exactly.
So I think it's about finding that balance,
Mhm.
and realizing that technology is just one piece of this puzzle when we're trying to understand how society changes and how people behave.
Absolutely.
Now, here's another interesting thing the author says.
What's that?
They say that a culture of narcissists actually benefits the people in power.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they're saying that a society that's focused on individual needs and desires is easier to control because people are less likely to challenge authority.
Interesting.
So think about it. If we're all just worried about ourselves, are we less likely to notice what's going on around us?
That's a good point.
Less likely to question those in charge?
Hmm.
And the author seems to think that's exactly what's happening.
So you're saying they think that those in power are using our narcissism against us?
They're saying that they use consumerism and the media to keep us distracted and obedient.
It sounds a little like a conspiracy theory.
It does, but We can't deny that we live in a world that encourages us to buy more stuff and want instant gratification.
That's true.
So the question is, how do we break free from that?
Yeah, how do we stay aware and think critically in a culture that glorifies being selfish and materialistic?
These are big questions, and we're going to keep digging into them as we explore this piece further.
It'll be interesting to see where this goes.
It will stay tuned.
All right. Welcome back to the deep dive.
So as we were saying before the break, this author is really connecting all these different ideas, consumerism, family structures, female empowerment, and saying it's all leading to a culture of narcissism.
It's just they're saying it's all intertwined somehow, right?
Exactly. Like there's this force pushing American society towards narcissism.
It's a really compelling argument.
It is.
But we have to look at it critically, too.
Right.
Are we really seeing more narcissism, or is the author just picking and choosing evidence to fit their viewpoint?
It's a good question, and it's something we'll keep in mind as we go.
Okay.
Let's get back to that list of female narcissists.
Ooh, yeah.
This is where things get really tricky.
It does.
We're talking about real people with lives and families.
Exactly. And we have to be careful about labeling someone as a narcissist.
We do, especially without, the proper expertise and context.
Right. It's not a diagnosis we can just throw around lightly.
Definitely not. And it's also important to remember that this list includes women from all different areas of life.
That's true.
Politicians, actresses, business leaders. It's a very diverse group.
Makes you wonder if maybe the author is falling into some stereotypes here.
What do you mean?
Well, are they just labeling any woman who's ambitious or successful or outspoken as a narcissist?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like, are we quicker to judge women who don't fit those traditional roles?
Who challenge the expectations.
Exactly. Or who show traits we usually associate with men, like assertiveness or a drive for power.
That's an interesting point because maybe what the author sees as narcissism is really just women breaking free from those old constraints.
Right?
Like they're finally allowed to be ambitious and go after what they want.
And maybe the author's own biases are influencing how they see these women.
That's possible.
Yeah.
So instead of just calling them narcissists,
Yeah.
maybe we should be asking, what are the systemic factors at play here?
Okay.
Like, are these women really narcissistic, or are they just navigating a system that rewards self-promotion?
And rewards assertiveness.
Exactly. Those are really good questions.
And it takes us back to what the author said about how a culture of narcissists benefits those in power.
Right, because they said that a society focused on individual needs is easier to control.
Yeah, because people won't challenge authority or work together.
And it makes you think about the role of consumerism in all this.
How so?
Well, if we're always focused on getting more stuff, are we less likely to see the bigger picture?
That's a good point.
The author seems to think. So they say that those in power exploit our narcissism
Right.
by keeping us distracted with consumerism and entertainment.
It's like we're being lulled into complacency by shiny objects.
That's a good way to put it, and it might sound a little conspiratorial,
It does.
but you can't deny that we live in a world that encourages us to buy.
It's true. We're bombarded with messages telling us to want more all the time.
So how do we break free from that?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is how do we stay aware and think critically when everything around us is telling us to be selfish and materialistic?
I think it starts with recognizing the power of those messages
Okay.
and understanding how they affect us.
Right, like being more conscious of the media we consume.
Exactly, and asking ourselves some questions.
Let's see.
Well, like, who benefits from this message?
Okay.
What are they trying to get me to do?
That makes sense.
And how can I form my own opinion?
Those are all good things to think about.
It's all about developing our critical thinking skills.
Absolutely. We're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into this article about narcissism.
It's been a lot to unpack.
It has, but I think even though we didn't always agree with the author, they brought up some good points.
Oh, definitely. They made us think about some uncomfortable truths about our society.
Like how we connect happiness with buying things.
Yeah, and how we're always being told to want more.
To buy more, to be more, to achieve more. It never ends.
And it's easy to get caught up in that.
It is. You start to feel like you're always chasing something.
And never quite getting there.
Exactly. And I think that's where the author's argument about narcissism comes in.
Right. They're saying that all this striving and self-focus is creating a generation of narcissists.
And I don't know if I completely agree with that label,
Me neither.
but it does make you wonder if we're becoming more self-absorbed.
Yeah. Are we losing sight of what really matters?
Things like empathy and compassion and community,
Exactly. Those are the things that connect us as humans.
and help us build a better world.
So if we're worried about narcissism taking over, what can we do about it?
That's the big question.
It is, and I don't think there's an easy answer.
But I think it starts with being aware of how these societal forces are shaping us.
Right, like realizing how those messages are influencing our thinking.
And then questioning those messages.
Like asking who's sending this message and why.
Exactly. What do they want me to think or do?
And how can I form my own opinion?
So it's all about critical thinking
It is.
and making conscious choices about how we engage with the world.
Like choosing experiences over possessions.
Connecting with people in real and meaningful ways.
And supporting things we believe in.
Because true happiness comes from connection, not from buying more stuff.
I love that.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive, and I hope it's given you a lot to think about.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.